You're good to start.
Good day, everyone. I won't say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because I know people are in lots of different places around the world. Welcome to this webinar on sport for development and peace. My name is Professor Simon Chadwick. I am Director of Eurasian Sport at EM Lyon Business School in France. Although, like everybody else, I'm not currently in my office at the moment. I'm working out of Great Britain, and hence I'm fairly close by to Reem. Reem is at the Qatari Embassy in London, and before we launch into the main part of today's proceedings, what I would like to do is to invite Reem to introduce the webinar and to say a little bit more about her work and about the work that Qatar is engaged in this field.
Good morning, everyone. It's really good to have you here with us today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Reem Al-Harami. I am a diplomat here at the Embassy of Qatar in London. I would like to start off with saying that I'm very delighted to be hosting you and speaking on this occasion as we mark the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace. As you may all aware, Qatar has a national passion for sport, and we believe that sport has the power to change the world. The International Day of Sport for Development and Peace is an opportunity to highlight how sport can strengthen societal ties within and between societies and promote sustainable development and peace, as well as solidarity and respect between nations and individuals. We mark this International Day at a time when countries strive to recover from the pandemic. We want to reaffirm on the importance of sports in fostering a community and team spirit in response to the pandemic. We in Qatar know that sport can cross boundaries, defy stereotypes, improve our physical and emotional health, and inspire hope across nations. At the same time, we will only be able to truly achieve these aspirations if we recover better and help the pandemic by ensuring that everyone is protected from COVID-19. In many ways, sport can be an antidote to the pandemic by reducing anxieties and improving people's mental health. Sport can also provide employment and income to many people around the world and can be an integral sector to the economic success for many communities and regions. This is particularly important for communities affected by challenges such as violence, armed conflicts, displacement, and natural disasters. Through global initiatives such as Sport for Peace and Development in Darfur, Qatar seeks to promote social integration and peace building, with long-term goal of conflict resolution and achieving development. As you may all aware, next year Qatar will be the first country in the Middle East and the Arab and Islamic world to be hosting the FIFA World Cup 2022. We are firmly dedicated to ensuring that the tournament leaves a positive human, economic, and social and environmental legacy for our country. That is why we have from onset set out how our preparations for the World Cup will be delivered with sustainable development goals in mind. Finally, I hope this event will be a productive one. I'm sure it will be. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reem. And can I endorse and reiterate your messages? I was thinking as you were speaking about when I was a kid and I used to kick a ball. And by kicking a ball in the street, it enabled me to meet the kids from the next street. And then once we become friends with them, we kicked another ball with other kids from another street, and then from another district, and then from another town. And now here I am with people from all over the world talking about peace and development through sports. So for those of you who are here today and you're involved on the front line of important projects and initiatives that bring people together through sports, then I bow my head and say thank you and well done. But for those of you who are not working for major projects, I think it's important to stress as well, for many of us on a day-to-day basis, even when we talk about sport to other people, it's a way of bringing us together, and it's something that we understand and something we enjoy. And so I wholeheartedly endorse what you said, Reem. I monologue a lot on webinars, okay? I could talk all day, so I'm going to stop monologuing and go straight to Rauda. And if I could ask you, Rauda, to begin with, tell us a little more about who you are and where you are and what you do and why you think you're here today.
Thank you, Simon. I'm Rauda Al-Naimi. Currently, I work with Qatar Fund for Development as the Strategic Partnership Head. I oversee the United Nations agencies and also the bilaterals with a small team that focuses on delivering on the SDGs. And with a focus, we're promoting peace and justice through delivering it through the Sustainable Development Goals. The State of Qatar has established Qatar Fund for Development actually to focus and deliver international cooperation, focusing on three main sectors: the health and education, and also economic empowerment. And one of the biggest aspects, as I said, we try to promote peace and justice through these sectors. And sports actually was part of what we have achieved in Darfur as well. And I leave it to my colleagues here to also.
Okay, thank you, Rauda. Ali Abdullah, please, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning to whomever here in Doha, in London, I mean, and Europe. Good afternoon, whomever is in Doha. And this is Ali Abdullah, Deputy Director General for Planning at Qatar Fund for Development. The strategic partnership and the global advocacy falls under my wings. And as we can see, like, this year or from last year actually and onward, like we try to focus on sport component within our programs, within all projects that we are implementing. As we all know, and we anticipate that within 594 days to the first football match on the World Cup 2022. Everybody is very much thrilled about counting down the dates and looking forward to have this lovely discussion today towards peace and development.
Thank you, Ali Abdullah. As you said that, I'm reminded of the first time that I saw the countdown clock in the Supreme Committee building back in 2013, I think, and I can't believe that it's so close now. So thank you, Ali Abdullah. Massimiliano, could you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Massimiliano. I'm here representing the International Center for Sport Security. It's CEO. And also CEO of the Save the Dream initiative, which is the arm utilized by the ICSS to work mainly with youth and civil society, with youth and for youth, of course. Let me first of all, show the white card. I don't know if you can see it, but because as every year we are supporting our friends and partners from Peace and Sport in promoting the White Card campaign as a part of the activities undertaken within the 6th of April. So I wanted to maintain my promise. Very glad to see some of our partners in this conversation, like UNODC, because we had really the honor to assist them by sharing some ideas and expertise during the drafting of their handbook on sport and PV. And most importantly, to see our friends and partners from the Qatar Fund for Development that made possible the implementation of the project in Darfur Dreams. For this reason, I came today with this backdrop that shows some of the persons and the youth that were involved in the project, because it's always nice to link high level, let's say, policy discussion, and then to show what this conversation and these policies then means, in practical terms. So look forward to continue the conversation, and thank you once again for having us.
Thank you, Massimiliano. And Daniel?
Good afternoon from Education City in Doha. My name is Professor Daniel Reiche. I joined Georgetown, Qatar last summer after working before 12 months at the 12 years at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon, the largest US university outside the US. And my research and teaching is on sport policy and politics, as well as on energy. And I'm leading here at GUQ a research initiative on the Qatar FIFA World Cup 2022. We do a number of activities such as a lecture series, a blog, and a podcast, which you can subscribe to on all common podcast platforms. And our overall question is, how does the World Cup impact Qatar on socially, politically, and economically, but also its regional and global affairs. And we want to be of maximum benefit to the community and involve as many people as possible. So if you want to be involved in one of our activities or have any suggestions, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you, Daniel. And finally, Marco.
Thank you, Simon. It's very grateful from UNOVC side, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, institution for what I work, and I lead one of the global programs that has a special component on youth crime prevention through sports. And this is what I will invite you, all of you, to see during my presentation later on during this webinar. But especially we see the potential, and we're very grateful to be here because it continues to show the commitment of the State of Qatar, not only to celebrate the day, but to transform policy into action. So it's a pleasure to see the colleagues from Qatar Fund for Development, Massimiliano, which worked with us before in other initiatives, also Daniel, and also a special thank to the Embassy of the State of Qatar in London for inviting us to share a little bit what we have done and what we hope to continue to do in the field of sports to prevent crime. So Simon, that's who I am, and over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marco. And I'm going to go back to Marco in just a second because Marco's got a rather impressive presentation that I want people to see. So we're going to go back to him in a moment. From my side, obviously I'm the moderator. I'll not say too much other than what I'm interested in is the geopolitical economy of sport, with a particular interest in East Asia and West Asia specifically the Gulf and Qatar and other countries. So I'm interested in not just peace, but how that impacts upon economy and society and culture and politics and so forth. So thank you everybody for your introductions, and thanks to the audience for being patient with us and permitting me to introduce people. To help launch us into the webinar, I thought it would be a great idea because of Marco and the presentation he's created. It would provide a nice introduction for us. So could I invite you now, Marco, to run through that presentation, and then I'll come to some of the other speakers to ask them for their views on some of the issues that you've raised.
Thank you, Simon. Sure. Don't put me on the spot that's saying this is an impressive presentation. I'm not sure, so I leave to the audience to classify it. I'll try in the next 8 to 9 minutes to go through a few elements of our work. And George has just started to share the presentation. Thank you, George. George works with me. To start, obviously, a good introduction from our dear panelists of today. A special salutation to Ms. Rim Anari from the Embassy of the State of Qatar in London. And obviously, I want again to express my appreciation for this special event that also symbolizes the commitment of the State of Qatar towards sports as a tool for peace and development, and also to my esteemed colleagues on this panel. Going to the slide 2 and contextualizing UNODC initiative on crime prevention through sports, it was actually developed as part of one of the 4 interrelated components of the program that I lead. That actually is the global program for the implementation of Doha Declaration. And basically, the youth crime prevention through sports angle tries a little bit to foster learning and building youth resilience to crime and violence through, I would say, some skills building for life that has in its basis also the skills learning, empowerment, and obviously the youth participation. The sport initiative, but also the program itself as a whole and global, has also centered their efforts on putting youth as actors of change, and now they contribute to be agents of change in their own societies, to promote rule of law and build obviously more just and inclusive societies, very linked to SDG 16 also. Next slide, please, Georgia. It is, from our perspective, clear that the growing contribution of sports to the realization of development and peace, and actually as a tool to promote tolerance, respect, health, education, social inclusion. So it's so linked with Agenda 2030 and several of the SDGs. So we see sports as a vehicle to reach young people, including those that are at higher risk, and obviously in marginalized communities, and obviously they are being affected by violence and conflict. So from our perspective and analyzing a little bit the research, obviously it is the growing knowledge of the engagement of youth in target specific intervention has an effect to target the root causes of violence and crime, and from another perspective, to serve as a shield and a protective factor to be obviously enable those youth to be less victimized by violence and crime. And this is also part of building up of the UN standards and norms on crime prevention that calls for evidence-based responses and the relevant research to obviously to address those root causes of crime and the role of sports to address those. Next slide, our flagship program under the youth crime prevention, the sports, it's called Line Up Live Up. And what is Line Up Live Up? Is basically evidence-based, sports-based, building skills for the future. And it's a training curriculum, basically. A training curriculum that is composed of 10 interactive classes. And each of them has specific targets to build a specific life skill. So basically what we try to address is create the protective factors for youth, as I mentioned, and basically try to shape the young people attitudes and how that affects their beliefs, their perceptions, and their resilience to be capable of addressing risk factors linked with violence and crime. Furthermore, and I'll pass to the next slide, I think Maximiliano mentioned this in the beginning of his introduction. What we have also created is a new knowledge product. For the first time, UN created and basically a tool that is aiming at preventing violent extremism and the role that sport can have on preventing PVE. And of course, many of you who are panelists and also who are joining us via YouTube and participating in the development of this tool, which is for us important to empower youth and communities to increase social cohesion and especially to address the violent extremism root causes. And obviously this is also contributed with the expertise of UNESCO and other UN colleagues. I'll move to the next slide a little bit mentioning that under the youth crime prevention through sports and our initiative that basically picks sports as a tool, we have worked closely with member states, but not only states, but non-state actors to develop and to deliver our technical assistance. And this is what we have tried to do, is to have an inclusive and find a fit to all the actors in specific communities. Either they are from state members or institutions, either they are from non-state. And of course, we have produced guiding tools and training tools, obviously, to materialize this engagement on their own communities. Part of our work is also clearly working with policy and policy workshops, events to try to find the best way to integrate sports-based interventions in the specific setting that they want to be included in, obviously, the development efforts of special communities. And finally, another point that I want to mention is also the focus that we have in capacity building of the different actors to allow them to be more evidence-based in their approaches and be also more efficient in their approaches. And with a specific touch in here, we try to focus in marginalized communities, those communities that are more difficult to reach, where they are more avid to have opportunities to engage, and especially where we think that sports-based program can be a different touch to promote, obviously, more rule of law-based societies and interventions. I'll pass to the next slide a little bit, thinking what we have done so far. We have more or less reached 150,000 people. This includes young people that receive specialized training, participated in sports and youth events, coaches that participated in training of trainees initiatives, and obviously state officials and non-state officials, including NGOs, actors, and staff. We have piloted the lineup Live Up in around 13 countries around the globe, and this program was piloting totally different settings, from Uganda to Central Asia countries, from Palestine, Lebanon to the slum areas of South Africa, and we moved to other parts of the globe, to South America, including Brazil. So our lineup Live Up practices is actually been very quite diverse in terms of the communities that we roll out the program, and also as organized something which is also important for us, a lot of engagement with sports federation, which is a new layer of programming that we are continuing to explore, how associations, sports associations can have a role also on the use of sports for crime prevention. A quick overview in this slide of the program achievements so far. We have trained around 14,000 youth in 13 countries. This includes the specialized training for more 1,100 trainers and coaches on the use of sports as tool of education and learning. And obviously we have reached more than 7,000 young people on different communities. I'll move a little bit to the next slide. Another layer of our programming is basically the provision of sports equipment. So we have worked with more than 600 schools and community centers to create what I would say safety environments and enabling environments for the sports to be used as a tool for skill building. So we work obviously in different communities to basically create the environment that allows to materialize these sports-based interventions, structurally wise. And this was obviously done in partnership with different national institutions, non-state actors, and including, this was absorbed as national crime prevention strategies. For instance, in Peru, that we partner with different parts of the state actors in Peru, including the sports federation and sports institutions. I'll move to a little bit more to our achievements that go beyond numbers that I've mentioned, which is the next slide. And our commitment is continue to analyze our impact, to do, and we finalize our result assessment impact a little bit to know if we are in the right track, if the evidence that we are creating or we try to create in our activities is actually having an impact on the behavior of children, of youth that are engaged with us. And I think the metrics that you are seeing displayed there, 97%, average increase of knowledge of 30%, I think it's also a positive indicator of that we are in the right direction in terms of the impact of our work. I'll move to the next slide, obviously mentioning that addressing conflicts and promoting peaceful and just societies free of violence and crime requires obviously a multi-sectoral approach and coordinated approach. And this is obviously what we'll continue to try also to promote as part of our framework. Looking to the future, you see there 5 points which we're looking to move forward in terms of our programming. I will not read all of them, just a snapshot, because I'm aware that I've reached now almost the time that I tried to put my presentation in. And obviously our objective is obviously to materialize the General Assembly resolution, as you can see there. Also continue to support the achievement of sustainable development objective, and obviously trying to continue to reduce the radicalization and violent extremism. And for that, we consider sports continue to be one of the best instruments to do so. Simon, I tried to be as behave as possible during my presentation in terms of time. I want to thank again all for listening to me, and obviously thank you, and I will deliver back to you the floor. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much, Marco. And I thought that was a very good point to start. There was a lot in there. It's a real pity we can't do this for several hours, because we could really take apart those issues and talk about them in more detail. What I particularly liked about your presentation, Marco, is your specific reference to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. For those of you who are joining us today who are unfamiliar with the SDGs, I think that's a very good starting point always for really understanding the kind of work that our guests and many, many other people are involved in. But I also noticed, Rhoda, that you also mentioned the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So this is one of the threads that ties us together this morning. So Rhoda, I was wondering, can you tell us about your work and in particular, elaborate some more on those SDGs and how your role works within those SDGs to bring sport and development together?
Thank you, Simon. In terms of the SDGs, and especially the Sustainable Development Goals, they are interconnected. And when it comes to delivering aid, and especially humanitarian and development aid, we try to focus on these interlinkages and to ensure that we are delivering the aid towards an inclusive, let's say, approach. And in terms of SDGs, we focus on several priority sectors, which are the health, economic, and health and economic and economic empowerment, and also education. However, in these approaches, we also try to increase several components, and one of them is actually sports, to ensure we are addressing them in the right way, and also to ensure that we are targeting it in a good way. In terms of what are the relations here between sports and also development, I want to focus on actually the Sports for Peace and Development initiative that we have done in Darfur in collaboration with Qatar Charity and other partners as well. In Darfur, Sudan, where children and youth from various internally displaced persons camps participated in the sports festival, which actually included multiple activities and workshops. The children were joined with celebrities, athletes like Roger Mill, and not only to encourage them, but also to give them a sense of solidarity. And here I stress the importance of solidarity when it comes to these. The Sports for Peace and Development initiative aimed to promote social cohesion between the IDPs and their own communities. Sports in this situation is an opportunity to provide a safe environment and supportive haven for refugees and IDPs. It also could be a tool to build their individual skills and capacities. And as already shown by Mr. Marco just now in the presentation, it's actually helped them and enable their capacities and to boost their physical and psycho-social well-being and their self-esteem as well. It is needed, it is indeed a mean to help them live a dignified life. Also, the concept of sports for peace and development, it is deeply rooted in the recognition that sports possesses unique attributes, allowing it to act as an effective tool, contributing to development and peace process through promoting such skills. For example, life skills where personal and interpersonal skills help them do decision-making and communication as well, self-esteem and also leadership. Another thing I want to focus on, it's also enhancing their social inclusion, building trust, team spirit, establish bridges between these groups. As I mentioned, our project was focusing on internally displaced persons who are already hindered by the fact that they are needed to move from their own places. They are already challenged by different factors in the environment. and such opportunity to help them at least forget these kind of challenges, and to able them at least process these through sports, and these to just avoid, not just to forget, to also adapt to the changes that they are facing, and to feel a bit of normality. Back to you on this.
Okay. Could I ask a very personal question, Rhoda?
Yes.
You talked about economic empowerment. Could you clarify for us what does that mean? What does economic empowerment mean?
Creating, let's say, decent jobs, and also not just creation of jobs itself. Also, we try to help the direct and indirect approach. So creating job, and also what can we have like a double effect with these kind of jobs. So we try to trigger, let's say, basic services included in the implementation that we are trying to do. So if you could have green economy, for example, providing green jobs in certain areas to help them adapt to climate change, and also create job creation to them. Everything that the fund is working on is always, let's say, embedded with different components, not to focus on just economic empowerment, as we believe the importance of economic empowerment actually will enable you to have at least a human development, and in component with it, the other sectors as well. So TVET, for example, trainings, educational trainings, to ensure that they have at least the capabilities and skills that they need, and also in coordination with it, the needed education as well.
Okay, thank you, Rhoda. Thank you for your insights. If I could move across to you, Ali Abdullah, and I know that along with Rhoda, you're working for the Qatar Fund for Development. Do you take a different perspective, or have you got something further to add to what Rhoda has said to us?
Thank you, Simon. Yes, I will summarize it in a keynote. Thank you, Mr. Simon. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists, it's my distinguished pleasure to join you all today in recognition of the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace. This day was flagged by United Nations General Assembly and the International Olympic Committee to recognize the role that sports plays in societies, and its powers to foster dialogue, mutual understanding, social inclusion, and peace. And this is rightly so. Sport remains unique attribute that brings huge value to the development and peace processes. Firstly, sport transcends national, cultural, socio-social, and political boundaries that can therefore be invoked successfully in the community globally. Sport is popular, it is fun and enjoyable for everyone. An aspect not to be underestimated in the context where people faces relentless challenges in their daily lives. Secondly, sports' ability to connect people and communities is one of its most powerful development attributes. Sport brings together people from different backgrounds. It can help build social relationships, foster a community's capability to work collectively to realize opportunities and address the challenges. It can promote teamwork, cooperation, fair play, respect for opponents, and inclusion. Moreover, global sport events offer the capacity to reach vast numbers of people and are thus very effectively platforms for public education and social mobilization. Fourthly, sport is one of the most cross-cutting of all developments and peace tools. It is being used to promote health and prevent diseases, strengthen child and youth development and education, foster social inclusion, prevent conflict and build peace, foster gender equality, enhance inclusion of persons with disabilities, and to promote employment and economic development. And this at relatively low cost for individual and the public. Lastly, sports has unique potential to empower, motivate, and inspire individuals and communities. It draws on, develops, and showcases people's strength and capabilities by shedding light on what people can do rather than what they cannot do. Sport, hence, it is also an extremely powerful means to promote physical and mental health, providing opportunities for personal development and building self-esteem. Reflective of this great potential, sport for development peace, back in 2018, the Qatar Fund for Development signed the Sport for Peace and Development initiative with its strategic partners, Qatar Charity and the International Center for Sport Security, targeting internally displaced people in Darfur in Sudan. This initiative showed, as our friend was saying later, that the event is such relentless circumstances. Sport has power to provide the safe and sportive environment for IDPs to overcome emotional scars, raging confidence, and rebuild the trust. The State of Qatar is not only the host of the 2022 FIFA World Cup, it has also been advocating for the sport contribution towards peace and development for quite some time, and at different levels. This point is made obvious in both the State of Qatar's National Vision 2030 as well as its effort on the global scale. Such efforts can be traced all the way back to 2010, when Qatar launched Generation Amazing, an initiative that uses the power of sport to empower and educate youth in various countries in the Middle East and Asia, targeting vulnerable and displaced people through the construction of community football fields, the delivery of comprehensive football and development training, and involvement of young generation. Furthermore, in 2018, the State of Qatar contributed generously to the support of UNRWA education program. As such, UNRWA organized a sport day to mark the sport from Qatar Fund for Development and the Education Above All Foundation. The activities of the sport day took place at the Qatar-sponsored Anwar Nablus Girls School in Saida, in the southern of Lebanon, which was part of the series event aimed to celebrate the right of education for Palestinian refugees, implemented by UNRWA, in recognition of the generous support provided by the State of Qatar for 2018. Henceforth, it is a great pleasure and my honor to be here today to echo some of the Qatar's effort and to hear and learn from all of you about your experience from using sport as a tool to accelerate development and peace-building effort around the world. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Ali Abdullah. At this point, just to say, I'm going to go next to Massimiliano, then to Daniel, and then Reem. I'll come back to you eventually, and I'll ask you for a broader Qatari perspective, perhaps on sport, peace, and development. So, Massimiliano, in terms of the work that you're involved in, could you talk us through some of the key elements and how you see this issue from your side?
Certainly. First of all, let me reiterate my gratitude to the Embassy of Qatar for the invitation. It's really a pleasure for me. And it's really a pleasure also to maybe to formulate some consideration, also building on what I have listened to, so far. We mentioned a few times in this initial presentation the word policies. The word policies is a key factor because when we talk about sport for development and peace, when we also talk about sport and prevention on violent extremism, it can be natural to start to think, first of all, about activities on the ground, about activities at the grassroots level, about activities in the field, which are obviously essential, and they are, let's say, the last element of a longer and more, let's say, complex chain and system of action. The proper work at the policy level is fundamental because, first of all, it gives us the opportunity to all speak the same language. And this is an extraordinary achievement because nowadays, when we talk about sport for development and peace, we can say that we have now in place a common approach, a common, let's say, discipline to the common, a common doctrine which allows coordination and synergy between the donor community, between implementing agencies and organizations and people who are then the end beneficiaries of this work. We mentioned the Darfur project. The Darfur project, it was a successful initiative because it was not just a sport-based project, let's say, conducted in isolation, but it was a sport-based project which was implemented within the framework of a broader policy and approach that was led by Qatar organizations like the Qatar Fund for Development, and of course with the partnership of Qatar Charity. But at the same time, it was also falling within even a broader approach that was the peace process led and promoted by Qatar for Darfur. So just to say that it was a sport-based project, but it was linked and integrated to something bigger and therefore also more sustainable and with a higher level of impact. And then, of course, there was all the good work done on the ground, thanks to the people that we have deployed. I remember then when after we kick off the initiative with the QFFD and with Qatar Charity, then we have approached all the key organizations in Qatar, from the Qatar Olympic Committee, the whole football family and other organizations, and we have invited all of them to contribute, and nobody said no. So the answer was always immediate. How can we contribute? Can we contribute with sport equipment, with sport materials? Can we send a coach? So we mobilize coaches from Aspire Academy, who made a great difference once we were on the ground. As what made a difference was the strong focus on the development of skills. Again, a word that I heard mentioned a few times from Marco. Development of skills, learning skills. This is a key element in the implementation of any sport-based project. There was an NGO many years ago that used to say there is no peace without justice, but there is also no peace without employment and job opportunities. And this is where sport can play a role, because sport and sport-based projects can actually contribute to significantly develop skills within youth for future employability or for future job creation purposes. This is for us one of the key elements, and this is what we try to, and what we did in Darfur. All our sport projects actually were a project on how to learn managerial skills, let's say, masqueraded by sport projects. Also the sport festival that mentioned by my colleague from QFFD, actually youth participated in this festival, but youth also contributed to the organization of the sport festival, acquiring important skills that hopefully they will be able to utilize also in other sectors, of their economy or in other moments of their life. The ICSS is promoting an international agenda on the development of skills for sport in collaboration with the ILO and other organizations. And at the policy level, I would also like to mention the work that we have now initiated a year ago, again, thanks to the support of the State of Qatar and other UN member states like the Republic of China and the Republic of Korea, a program to bring, let's say, the topic of sport and PV closer and closer, of course, to the dimension of, let's say, policy shaping, in order to make sure that national PV plans can embrace across countries, sport and PV concept and components. We are currently working in this regard on a guide for policymakers and also on a handbook to assist the planners of major sport events in utilizing and sport for PV projects. In fact, we believe that major sport events, they possess a unique energy that can promote intercultural dialogue and different forms of mutual understanding, but at the same time are unique opportunities to promote, let's say, development in communities that could be at risk of violent extremism and integrate them in something bigger, nice, and sustainable, like a major sporting event, an Olympic game or a football World Cup, or also other events of a different scale.
Massimiliano, thank you for that. And I particularly liked your observation about dialogue and being exposed to others and different ways of seeing the world through sport. And for me, very personally, this is what I think one of the things, the most important things sport has given to me. And so again, I wholeheartedly endorse what you just said there. I'm coming to you, Reem. Okay, soon, I'm coming to you, Reem. Daniel, could you give us your views on things from where you are?
Yeah, as somebody who studies the World Cup, I would like to highlight all the great work done by Generation Amazing, the legacy project of the World Cup. I just inquired in the morning about the most recent data, and they have built 30 football pitches in 10 different countries for underprivileged communities, such as refugees or poor neighborhoods. So I believe that's remarkable. And they're reaching with that more than 700,000 boys and girls, and they're aiming for even 1 million until the World Cup. As a scholar, I have to mention, when I look at previous World Cups and Olympics, often legacy programs have ended at the day of the event, of the last day of the event. So the challenge is to maintain these activities beyond 2022. There's one notable exception, which is the Los Angeles Olympics '84. The surplus of the games was used to establish the LA Foundation, which is still promoting youth sports in Los Angeles. And I'm glad to hear that there are, considerations to transform Generation Amazing into a standalone foundation after the World Cup. I think that would be the right way to do. And by doing so, Qatar would set a high standard for future event hosts. Beyond that, of course, it's interesting to see the developments on the domestic level and how sport is becoming more inclusive. School sport has become obligatory for boys and girls at private and public schools. A lot of investments have been made into sporting facilities. Qatar is one of the few countries with a national sports day, which I believe is also impressive. And but if we look at the data, which I have recently done when writing something about the national women's rugby team, which is not yet published, according to the official statistics, we have enrolled in national sports federations 20,000 male athletes and 2,000 female athletes. So there's still a ratio of 1 to 10. And I think we need to do more to better promote women. And I think what we particularly need are role models. So for our latest episode of our podcast, I've interviewed a female basketball referee and a woman football coach. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need players, but also coaches and referees, because I think many families will be feel more comfortable to allow their kids to play sports such as football when they are female coaches and female referees. So I think that's great. And of course, also, I mean, some might be surprised when I mention all the labor reforms in Qatar, but I think it's also an effect of the World Cup, because there have been so much critical reporting in the international media on the situation of migrant workers. Some of these reports have been not very fair, some have been accurate, but the country has addressed this now, and it's the first in the region which has implemented a minimum wage and many other improvements for the migrant workers, more job mobility, for example. So I think that's great. And also in the migrant worker accommodations, all those who have been recently established, there is very modern infrastructure to practice sport. So I think that's great. So sport needs to be inclusive for everybody, boys and girls, men and women, citizens, residents. And I think Qatar has remarkable accomplishments, and I hope it will continue this path also beyond 2022.
Thank you for that, Daniel. So Reem, I started at the very beginning talking about kicking a ball. And here we are kicking a ball, and suddenly there are several of us online talking about a country that is going to host one of the world's biggest sporting events, working with agencies across the world on projects that economically empower through to working with refugees. We now heard about labour market reforms and which Daniel introduced into the conversation. So as somebody who's working on behalf of the Qatari government, you've done an incredible amount of work over the last decade. So can you give us your view, either your personal view or your government view on sport and peace and development and the contribution that the country has made?
So the state of Qatar gives huge importance to sports. As you may be aware, Qatar is one of the sponsors for the UN resolution on sports for development and peace, highlighting the importance of sports in enhancing development, peace, and respect, and tolerance, achieving an active and healthy community. Therefore, the state of Qatar gives greater importance to sport through hosting numerous international sports events in the past and in the future and beyond the World Cup 2022 that will be hosted in Doha. I think also that the value of sports culture in Qatar is reflected through launching of local and international initiatives, including the National Sports Day that's being celebrated every February in Doha, and also the Doha Goals Initiative, which is other estimated panelists have spoken about today earlier. Also, Qatar is preparing to host the World Cup in Doha in 2022. The World Cup will accelerate the pace of development on a national level in regards of the infrastructure, taking into consideration national laws and which the state of Qatar works to amend and implement in accordance with the international laws and regulations. This is very important to talk about because Qatar has been very responsive when it comes to any kind of changes implemented or any kind of moving forward with the laws and everything. That Qatar has done a lot of changes in the past to improve the laws and to make them work better. Also, hosting the World Cup in Qatar is a regional accomplishment that will contribute to the development of the Middle East. I think this event will change the image of the Middle East in general and create an atmosphere of positive interaction between the region and the world. So in some, we in Qatar, value sport, but also recognize the positive impact it can have on conflict resolution and development as well. We look forward to supporting more initiatives, and we can achieve the noble aims of such initiatives, which are at the heart of Qatar's foreign policy as well.
Thank you, Reem. We've almost spent our time allocation of 1 hour, and I feel as though we've barely touched the surface, and I think that demonstrates the richness and the diversity and the significance of everything that we've talked about today. So I think we need to do this every week, probably for the next 2 years, to talk about all of the issues. But given that we do have a limited amount of time available, can I ask you just in one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences, looking ahead from here, and I'll begin with you, Marco, looking ahead from here, what would you say to audience members today that they should be looking out for? So Marco first.
Thank you, Simon. I think we are in a very challenging moment for sports due to the pandemic situation. So the sports sector itself and sports for development needs to find creativity ways to reinvent themselves. This is the challenge in front of us, but the opportunity is bigger than that. It's clear there is a framework at policy level that includes sport as a central factor to promote peace and development. So at the intergovernmental process, it's clear that member states agreed on the vital role of sports. Now the challenge is how we translate policy into action, how we translate this intention from a member state to the practices to have impacts at the local level in communities. And actually, Qatar and my vows to Qatar has been championing this in different initiatives, in different programs. And I think today is another witness of the commitment of the State of Qatar to help support translation of policy into action. This is what we hope to continue to do together. Simon, over to you.
Marco, thank you for that. And thank you for being with us today. Rhoda, one thing moving forward from here you think it's important that we keep an eye on?
For me is to focus on the universality of the sport itself. And this is where the beauty of sports actually, regardless of ethnicity, languages, or culture, it has a power that lies its ability to connect people and communities. Sports actually has become a language in itself and is one shared by many, where more than millions of strangers actually in a stadium or the interact relationship of a coach and athletes. The ability of sports always bring people together is unlike any other means. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Rada, and thank you for being with us today and sharing your views. Ali Abdullah, looking ahead, something you think we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, despite my colleague Marco was saying the pandemic has changed the parameter of aid globally. Thus, we're still emphasizing on the importance of the sport component in all our projects. Now we're increasing 2 new components to our strategy, which is sport to be piece of the overall plan of any executed projects here on, and also to focus also on the climate change. So those the 2 new, I would say, strategy the fund are trying to emphasize in the next few years. And I'm sure required Qatar that vision is beyond the World Cup. Now we are talking about the Asian in 2030. So the Qatar has been active in the sport arena, and we will also leverage such international events to promote peace and justice through sport.
Thank you, Ali Abdullah, and again, thank you for being with us today. Massimiliano?
Sorry. Yeah. Look, I like to recall a couple of years ago we had the opportunity to organize a youth forum with the Embassy of Qatar in Berlin on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And I remember that during the conversation we realized that at the time when the Berlin Wall fell, there was about 15 walls or fences or of different types all around the world. And 2 years ago, when we convened our forum, we were counting more than 70 walls all around the world of geopolitical or physical nature. So I think it's very important, of course, to utilize sport for development purposes and for peace within the countries which are affected, but also to keep utilizing it to promote interstate dialogue. So to keep using it as a geopolitical instrument across regions all around the world. Because also, let's say, the sport for diplomacy dimension is equally important, like the use of sport to promote development at the community or at the national level. And as a very last consideration, I think all the work that the international community has done in terms of measuring the impact of sport for development and peace, in terms of, let's say, developing and promoting result-based, approaches or even evidence-based approaches is extremely important. But at the same time, I also recommend to always also give value to everything that cannot be measured, which is also, let's say, the magic part of sport for development of peace, because there are a lot of things we can measure which are outstanding, but sometimes, you know, the greatest achievements are those that we cannot measure, that are the change that we are able, you know, to promote in the mind, in the heart, in the stomach of people. So never underestimate it.
Thank you, Massimiliano, and thank you again for being here. Daniel?
As a professor of government, I hope that Qatar is continuing its path of reforms beyond 2022, because I look forward to study that. And on an individual level, I just hope that everybody, you know, sport is a human right, and I wish everybody can choose the sport to practice he or she wants. It might be not always easy for us as parents to accept our children's choices. I was myself a table tennis champion on the regional level as a kid, and had the vision for my son to follow my footsteps. And I played with him, and then he told me he wanted to play chess. So he started becoming a chess player, and I had to learn just for him to play chess. So children sometimes make surprising choices. And if our daughters tell us they want to play rugby or football or handball or whatever, we should also accept this. I think to be able to practice the sport we want to practice is very important, as was discussed today, for, you know, our mental well-being and to succeed in life. So I can just encourage all of us to accept the choices of our children and to support them in their passions.
Thank you, Daniel, and again, thank you for being with us today. Thank you. Final word I'm going to give to Reem, and just to say to you, Reem, Qatar has had a profound effect on my life, because it has introduced me to all kinds of things that 11, 12, 13 years ago I never imagined would happen to me. And much of what I know today about the Gulf region and about the Middle East and about the Arab world, I owe to Qatar. Qatar was my introduction. So your legacy, there is a legacy for me of my work with Qatar. I just wanted to say that. But also I wanted to give you the final word, Reem, because it's very nearly here. As I mentioned earlier, the clock ticking down in the Al Bida Tower, we're almost there. So final words to you, Reem.
Well, thank you so much, Simon, for your kind words. I think the World Cup 2022 that will be hosted in Doha is a great opportunity for all of us to learn a lot about how football and how sports can have a positive impact on people's lives, how you know, the such a huge event such as the World Cup can actually have a long-lasting and sustainable change towards many societies. And I'm very grateful that Qatar has been doing a lot of you know, projects and initiatives to help communities around the world when it comes to sports and development and peace. I think that moving forward, like my colleague Abdullah said earlier, that, you know, Qatar will be hosting other sports events, just like how they did in the past. We'll be hosting, hopefully, you know, 2030, the Asian Games, and we will also move forward to continue the same legacy and the same initiatives that we have created to help ensure prosperity, peace, and development for all societies. What we need right now is for all entities and, you know, all organizations to work together, you know, to help overcome the obstacles, the current obstacles when it comes to COVID-19 or any other obstacles that can emerge in the future. We need to be collectively working together in order to overcome these and in order to serve the greater good of our societies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience who've been here live to listen to us today. For the people who watched the recording, we hope you find the recording useful. Thank you once again to all of our esteemed speakers. Thank you to the embassy, the Qatar Embassy in London, for organising this, and for all of the people behind the scenes too, because there are obviously other people behind the scenes who set up Zoom and liaised between the different speakers. So thanks to them as well. So thank you for joining us today, and we wish you a good rest of the day, good rest of the week, and I hope, like us, you're looking forward to the World Cup next year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.